Introducing the new Volvo XC90 with 7-seat versatility, Google built-in, and advanced safety features for all your precious cargo. The new Volvo XC90, designed for life. Visit volvocars.com/US to learn more.
At Chipotle, we also have a playlist. Guacamole as it's being hand-mashed, the sizzle of adobo chicken on the grill, the chopping of onions and cilantro. We call our playlist Real. Order now. Chipotle. For real.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
Hey everyone, this is Andrew Zink, the host of the Ghost of Tsushima Yotei Gamecast. I want to welcome you to the show and let you know that you can reach out to us via email or find us on Blue Sky. All of the links are in the show notes. You can join the Robots Radio Discord to chat with us directly, and you can listen to this podcast on any podcasting platform that you listen to. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome back, fellow samurai, villagers, or rural living folk, to episode 5 of the Ghost of Tsushima Yotei Gamecast. I'm your host, Andrew Zink. We took a 2-episode hiatus from covering Act 1 of Ghost of Tsushima. I just put out 2 episodes covering the Ghost of Yotei gameplay release on July 10th, 2025. Super excited for Ghost of Yotei to release in October. So officially speaking, this is episode 5. Go check out those 2 episodes if you want to. And so for this episode 5, this is going to cover Act 1 and all the side quests throughout Act 1 that you can do for just many of the different prefectures and various characters you can meet, things like that. So yeah, we're just gonna dive right in. And one of the things I just want to lead off with is that there's 3 ways to find the side quests. You can get a rumored location by talking to a civilian somewhere at a survivor camp or at the Golden Temple or somewhere else. You know, they'll say, oh, I've heard a story that in the Sutsu prefecture, you know, this is happening. And then it'll give you a rumored location to go find that quest. You can also just come across the side quest randomly on your own. And then you can follow the golden birds that will lead you to the side quests. So those are the 3 ways to find them. And then, yeah, I'm going to lead off with just a one quest in the Komada prefecture. And the reason I'm leading off with this one is that it's actually a quest for Lady Masako. And basically, I didn't realize this quest was there. So this quest should have been in the previous episode 4, about the main character storylines, but I didn't see it there. And one of there's 2 reasons for that. The first reason is that this quest actually doesn't have anything to do with her main story of hunting down the assassins who hunted her family. It's about her retrieving her family's bodies from Komada Beach. And then, yeah, the second reason why I missed this quest when tracking them is that Komada is really, of all the prefectures, it's where the intro to the game takes place. But once you leave it, there's not really any main story quests there. And this is the only side quest that takes place in Komada at all. So really, it's kind of interesting. There's no reason to ever go back to Komada for the most part, other than doing this quest. And this quest starts on the absolute northwestern tip of Izuhara in the southern part of Tsushima. So it's super easy to miss the marker. So I'm going to lead off with that one here. And then that'll have Komada taken care of, and the Masako storyline. So yeah, the Masako quest is called A Mother's Peace. And so it's unlocked after you meet Lady Moscow in the main story. You can also discover it talking to a refugee at the Golden Temple who says that she spotted Lady Komada riding for, Lady Moscow riding for Komada Beach. And she says that the Mongols still hold the beach and she's worried for her safety. And then Jin says, oh yeah, I should go check on her and make sure she's okay. So, that's a good example of the rumored location, mechanism in the game. So the quest location is close to Kiyomori's landing, and you arrive to find Lady Moscow fighting a whole group of Mongols, and then you help her clear them. So then a cutscene starts where Moscow says she's looking for her family, and she says she already found her passed away husband, but she can't find her sons. And Jin offers to help her find them on Komada Beach. So, as you walk down Komada Beach, you see the battle wreckage from the introduction to the game. And I have to say, I found this almost sort of traumatic is too strong of a word, but it really transported me back to that intro scene. And it just left me with this really shaken feeling of being back at that spot, because the whole landing area is just covered in battle wreckage, burnt wood everywhere, parts of the ground that are burnt sand, landing boats there, arrows in the sand, bodies everywhere that have just been left behind. So just a really, really intense atmosphere for this quest, and very solemn, very somber. There's you can find other Japanese civilians in the area just kind of like cleaning up, which again, it also raises a fascinating point of, imagine living in a place where a battle took place, but you actually live there. So you then have to clean up and imagine just like spending the rest of your life, like looking around and just remembering that battle and that happened in that place. So just a fascinating human story to consider. So for the quest, you're looking for Adachi banners, and the Adachi banners lead you to the right place. So you're going down Komada Beach, finding Adachi banners and kind of talking along the way. So along the way, you can also find a green Kikuchi banner, and they don't say much more than that, but I just thought I'd mention it because it's written out in the game, and hey, and anytime family or a character or someone's named, I'm going to try and mention it. So yeah, there's a green Kikuchi banner. You continue along the way, and then you actually find your own dead horse from when you and your horse got like blown up, and then you started on foot along the beach. And so right there, you kind of find the Sakai family banners too. So again, just really just a crazy feeling to be back at that scene. So then you find a dead Adachi soldier named Masanori, and Masako tells you that he was too young for battle, but his father was old, so Masanori went in his father's place. And Jin says that he was a brave warrior and a good son. And again, just an incredibly impactful story that they have in the game. And it also really shows you, this is kind of well known that in a lot of various Asian cultures, there's a real cultural emphasis on taking care of your family and your parents as they get older, and that's considered a real honor and responsibility. And they just really illustrate that here. And again, it's such a quick piece of dialogue, but it just really says a lot. And I love that they're getting that part of the culture right, and they're incorporating something that's accurate into the history, and that this happened a lot. People who were too old to go to battle, someone had to go in their place, and so family members would, and sometimes those family members were young, like really young, and then they died, and so it's just incredibly impactful and a sad story. And I commend Sucker Punch for just putting it in the game, and being accurate. So yeah, so then eventually you find a Nagao warrior and banner, and you talk about their archery, and you talk about how many Mongols they felled, and just talk with Lady Moscow about that. So just again, it's cool to find all the old Japanese banners along the beach from the battle. So eventually you find your uncle's banners, and you're returned to the spot where you charged at Khotun Khan at the beginning of the game, and where Lord Shimura is taken captive. So then you find someone named Ujikage, who was a close friend of Masako's sons, with an Adachi banner. there. So at this point, you're getting close. And so then Lady Masako actually says that the Mongols left their dead to rot on the beach. And Jin says, like discarded trash, like the Mongols just treat their own soldiers like discarded trash. And again, just a really fascinating difference that they're noticing and talking about, that the Japanese are really trying to honor, their dead. And the Mongols really, at least in the depiction of this game, they really do not care. Just playing by their own set of rules. They're much more ruthless. They do not have this code that the samurai and the Japanese are following. And there is one really important historical detail I want to mention here, which is that many tens of thousands of people who served in Mongol forces at this time were actually conscripted by the Mongols and forced into it. Many Koreans, many Chinese, and I'm sure there are many people who were native to the Mongol plains who didn't really want to be in the battles, but the Mongols forced them into it. And the Mongols would, the Romans kind of did this too, but the Mongols would use the conscripted Chinese and Koreans as like cannon fodder at the front of their lines to just take arrows. So again, I just felt like it's really important to mention that it's easy to just, play through this game and it's fun and it's cool, but there's historical precedent for all this. And this is all rooted in real history. And as you look at Mongol bodies in the game, it's easy to not think much of it, but a lot of them were people who really probably didn't want to be there, and they were forced to be there in the first place. So I just felt like that's important to mention. So eventually, you come over a beachy hill following the banners, and you find Lady Masako's two sons. Their names are Shigesato and Yasunari, and they're hung up on a tree beach, and they've been hung. And right then, Lady Masako kind of breaks down, and, Jin says right away, let's get them down, and Masako wants to bury them in Ariake with the rest of her family. But Jin says the journey isn't safe, and Masako says that they can bury them at the Komada lighthouse, but they'll have to clear the Mongols first, and Jin immediately says, all right, let's clear these people. Time to do this. And so, yeah, then on their way to the lighthouse, Masako is questioning herself as a mother because she's alive and her children are dead. And, she says that there's no greater failure than outliving your children. And just an incredibly sad and impactful moment. And so Jin is trying to bond with her and comfort her. And, he talks to her about how his own mother died of illness when he was young and how that was really hard on him. And so honestly, I was kind of just really surprised at just how like emotional this quest was, and how much it meant between Lady Masako and Jin. And again, I was feeling this just as someone playing the game, so just really noticeable. So eventually you reach the lighthouse, and it's at a place called Saicho's Point, and Masako charges in at a group of Mongols that are there, and she screams, "Mongol swine," just running in. And so you clear like 5 of them, and then, there's a bunch more waves that come after that. Eventually, you clear them all, and then you speak with Masako, and the screen kind of cuts to black, and both of her sons have been buried. It's nighttime. There's a quiet, moonlit sky. And she says she never let them spend the night there when they were young and always called them home, even when they were older. And Jin says that he misses his mother calling for him. That's one of the things he misses most. And Masako says that, he's been a good friend to her and to the Adachi clan, or what's left of it at this point, and that she will be there for him at Castle Kaneda, and thanks Jin for being there for her. And yeah, that's the end of the quest, the end of A Mother's Peace. So yeah, just in review, I mean, wow, just incredible. A lot of credit to Sucker Punch for just making a quest that was just so impactful. And I really felt like I felt a bond to Lady Masako after this, and I felt like Lady Masako and Jin had really bonded. So I'm just very impressed with this game. I'm very impressed with the story, and I just wanted to mention it. So definitely a bit of a heavy quest to start on for the side quest, but that wraps up Lady Masako's quest. And that's all there is. As I said before, that's all there is for Komeda. So the whole Komeda prefecture is done at this point. And at this point, we're going to move on to the Azumo prefecture. And I just want to say what I want to do for the side quests, I want to do them by prefecture from north to south. So Komeda makes sense because it's actually the northwesternmost prefecture. But I'm going to start with Azumo, which is the southeasternmost one. And the reason why is because there's a quest in Azumo that's called Unfinished Business. And it stood out to me because it's basically clearing Azumo Bay the same way that you can clear all the other, Mongol locations that they hold. And, that's kind of just like a part of the game of liberating Izuhara and the rest of the island. But when clearing the other towns, they're not actually side quests. You just clear them and that's it. So in this case, and the other reason this caught my eye is that this quest, Unfinished Business of clearing Azumo Bay, it wasn't listed on the Ghost of Tsushima wiki page. So, but it's in the game. So I just found that interesting, and I just figured I'd start there. So you start this quest after completing the Broken Blacksmith quest, where you rescue Taka with Yuna. Taka was Yuna's brother, who was the blacksmith. And if you remember in that episode, I actually said that at the end of that quest, Jin says, "Oh, I need to go back and free the people who are there." And that's where you start Unfinished Business. So just interesting to know about the game. So you start the quest by talking with villagers outside the walls of Azumo Bay who want to go in and fight the Mongols. So it's daytime at this point. Jin says they need to sneak in to save the hostages, because if a fight breaks out, that they'll just kill the hostages right away. So again, showing you that Jin has kind of learned a lot here along the way, right? And so the villagers say there's a hole in the fence that they were going to sneak through, and Jin tells them to wait there until he opens the gates for them. So eventually he waits, and then it's nighttime. And it's kind of a stormy nighttime quest. It's raining, it's very cloudy. So you walk up, and one of the things I had to point out is that you walk up and there's just no guards on the wall. So, then you go through the hole in the fence, like just right in the front. Pretty convenient. Lucky for us that there's just no guards looking out. But, just another funny video game thing. So for this quest, you need to free 3 villagers from the cages. You need to kill 3 Mongol leaders. You need to free 3 village elders, and then you need to open the village gates. So honestly, I don't really have a ton to say about this quest because it's just similar to clearing a Mongol-controlled village. It's a pretty cool mission. There's a lot of sneaking, and you can do a lot of jumping off of roofs, a lot of like roof climbing, a lot of, sneaking in and out of buildings, which was really cool. It almost feels like a little bit more like urban combat in a way. So that was really cool. And yeah, this quest, it really has all types of combat. Like, there's ample opportunity to use your ranged weapons. There's ample opportunity for stealth. There's ample opportunity to fight people out in public, and just a lot of different places to do it in Azumo Bay. So yeah, one of the first Mongol leaders you encounter while making your way through is forcing villagers to work, saying, they need to go catch fish. And it looks like they're fixing up fishing nets and such. And so the Mongol leader says, if we don't eat, you don't eat, to them. So, and again, I just appreciate that they're building in the atmosphere of what this would be like, if you were living under Mongol occupation at this time. So yeah, then there's a rescued villager who says, "Oh, they killed one blacksmith," and you tell him he actually escaped. So I thought that was cool. It's just like an acknowledgement of the quest that you did. So then another person you rescue is getting beaten up inside of a building, and he's the headman. And so he says that the Mongols were trying to get him to surrender, so everyone else in Azumo Bay would like submit to their rule and go along and help them. And he was saying he refused. And, that's why he was being beaten. So then he says that they're holding a healer, Konomi, near the shrine of Azumo Bay. So as you get closer to the end of the quest, the sun starts to rise, and then it's morning. And you save Konomi at the shrine. There's a group of Mongols, you clear them, and she says that the Mongols wanted her to heal their sick, and she refused. So then she says the new warlord must be defeated at the headman's house. So you go there, and this happens after you've freed all the villagers, you've opened the gates, and you've done everything you're supposed to do. And there's a cutscene of the Mongol ruler at the headman's house, and then you have a showdown with him, and this was awesome. And Jin Sakai says to the Mongol leader, like, "I'll leave with nothing less than your head," and I thought that was awesome. And Jin has this awesome unsheathing of the sword, as happens in this game with cool fights. And you start the fight, and you learn that the Mongol leader's name is Warlord Harunori. So, yeah, the actual fight scene with him is he has a real health bar. So this isn't just a normal guy you can just hit with a sticky bomb or something. I have to say, one thing I thought was interesting about this scene is that there was no super sick music to go along with it. So again, it's interesting. It's like this quest line. It wasn't like a prime story quest getting the main story or prime story quest treatment. Because there were other side quests where you had duels, and there was cool music, and the atmosphere was super cool. But this one, like, it didn't have that, but it was a real boss fight with a real health bar. So just interesting that this one quest kind of stands out on its own like that. So, after you defeat him and then you raise the village banners, the Azamo Bay banners back again, and that signifies the Azamo Bay is back, and the quest is then completed. And you kind of get a montage of Azamo Bay healing. It shows you like a woman holding a baby. People are starting to clean up and move back into Azamo Bay. So that's all very good. And yeah, that's the end of the quest. So at this point, there's only a couple other quests in Azamo. And we'll just, run right through them. So the next quest is called For Tsushima. And it takes place south of Hurin's pasture during the daytime. And this is the location where you can find the Ariake bamboo strike, actually. It's the Azamo bamboo strike, sorry. So you approach a woman at the Azamo Inn, and she's training. Her name in the game, she's just labeled Guardian. And she says that farmers and fishermen have joined together to start the Azamo League. And she says she came from Ariake to train them. So she says they were supposed to meet her at the inn hours ago, but they're AWOL. So Jin says he's never heard of the Azamo League. He'd be happy to help them train, and he's happy to help her find them. So you ride out, and she says that their leader that hides out, the leader of the Azamo League, hides out at a nearby farmhouse. And she says that she learned to fight because her village was often raided by pirates, and her parents were killed when she was little. So you arrive and you clear the Mongols at the burning farmhouse. And then, the Guardian and Jin find dead Azamo League men. But they say they could maybe save the main force, because the Guardian is saying that the main force is at this... with the leader, where the leader was hiding out at the farmhouse, which was a different one. So you then hear a horn blow, and she just rides off. And Jin says, wait, but she's like riding ahead of you, and you can't catch up to her. So then you arrive at another burning location, and, she says that it's too late. And you arrive there, and Jin says that samurai remain calm before a fight, but there's still Mongols there. And she then rushes in, and she just screams, "Pay for your crimes, invaders!" And yeah, I did think this was sick. Again, very Lady Masako energy right now. So you clear the Mongols at the burning location, and you can actually you can stealth it while she is just fighting them, but obviously your instinct is to just run in and help her. So afterwards, Jin says she almost died running into battle, and he gives her a samurai lesson about mastering her emotions. And again, it's kind of cool to see Jin as like a mentor figure for people after you've seen the flashbacks of him being mentored by Lord Shimura. So I thought that was cool. And then she says she'll return home to Ariake. And yeah, that's the end of the quest. Yeah, and I have to say, I really wish that this woman, the Guardian, I wish she joined your force. Because again, it's like you are getting people together to go to, Castle Kaneda and just liberate the rest of the island. And like she's clearly capable. You're training her. It would have just been a cool story thing. And it actually made me think of Mass Effect 3, or for anybody who's played that, there's a military readiness score throughout the whole game. And every person you recruit, everything you're doing is to increase that military readiness score to take on the Reapers at Earth at the end. And I just thought, like, oh, it would have been so cool if they had a similar thing here where it's like everybody you recruit just like, adds into a pool of like your total strength at the end of the game. But it's still an awesome game. It's fine without it. Maybe they'll have something like that in Ghost of Yotei. I don't know. We'll see.
Using a Clorox disinfecting wipe to clean that stuck-on sauce from the stove feels like...
Oh, boy. It tickles. Stop.
It feels like coming home to your needy corgi after a long day.
Best part of the day, finally.
With Clorox, clean feels carefree. Clean feels good. Use as directed.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
So yeah, that was it for the quest for Tsushima. The next quest in the Azamo Prefecture is the value of sake. So this is a pretty short quest. It's a brewery that you're heading to, a sake brewery, and it's north of a place called Keys Pond. And so it's the only housing there, and it's totally surrounded by forest. So the brewery is called Keys Sake Brewery of Azamo. And Jin says to multiple people that it's the pride of Tsushima. And this is another one you can get from a rumored location from someone at a survivor camp. And you hear that the Mongols are kind of taking it by force. So you arrive and talk with Key at the brewery. And she asks you to go inside for a cup of tea to talk. So you sit down inside with some tea. And she says that the Mongols might have overheard. That's why she wanted to be inside. And that the Mongols have been drinking them dry. So I guess it's not as dire as you thought. The Mongols are just taking the sake and leaving. Still not great. A form of economic oppression for people. And no type of oppression is okay. So then the Mongols, they talk about the Mongols drinking mare's milk and how it's really terrible. And then I thought, you know what, I should do a bonus episode about mare's milk and just the historical context of what did the Mongols eat and drink during their invasions. Would you all listen to that? If so, let me know. I'll probably just put it out anyway. So then Jin says that he's going to ambush the Mongols who are taking the sake, so that there won't be a problem anymore. So you can hide in a bunch of tall, flowery grass to the side of the brewery. So it's a really foggy, smoky weather, but it's also sunny. So it's kind of like a really strange atmosphere. And it actually kind of reminded me of, there's been a lot of wildfires across across Canada, and the wildfire smoke has blown down to the United States in, just the last year or two. And so there's been days like that where it's reminded me of that, where it's sunny, but it's this weird, foggy, smoky out. And that's how this atmosphere was. So then the Mongols walk up in this big group and you're hiding. This is a perfect chance to ambush them with an explosive weapon, like a sticky bomb, or throw out some black powder bombs or something. So, you do that. It's not super hard to clear them using the explosives. And then a second wave shows up. You then clear them too. That's that. And afterwards, the woman asks, Key, she asks if Jin can stay to protect them. And he says no, because he has to liberate the island and do other things. And he tells them that they should relocate to Golden Temple to take refuge. And that is the end of the quest, the value of sake. So yeah, pretty cool little side quest, and again, just cool that they're showing you that Tsushima has an economic output. And, it gives you an insight into what the life of, lower classes were like and how they might try and produce something to create economic stability for themselves. So the next quest is called Honor Buried Deep, and this is the final quest in Azamo Prefecture. So after you clear Azamo Bay, an unfinished business, you can get this next quest. And so a villager named Hyoe takes you inside to his house and says that his neighbor is acting suspicious. And he says that the neighbor's name is Haruro. And he says that Haruro sneaks out at sunset and stays out for hours. So Hyoe followed him to the burnt out house and saw him meet up with bandits. So he tells you he wants you to go after the bandits and that Azamo Bay isn't safe. So eventually you go to the deserted house near the Azamo cemetery and you investigate. You find a bunch of bloody bandages in a water bucket. And this is an investigation part of the quest, you know. So then you find a recently eaten meal, a campfire, and Jin comments that it's been used many times. So there's definitely, you know, a concerted effort happening here. And you hide out and wait for them. So then it starts raining, and then they return, the bandits, and they're talking about the Mongols on the road and trying to hide from them. So then one of them says that they brought a statue of Inari and they want to bury it with the rest. So Jin thinks that they're thieves. Jin says, oh, they're thieves and they've been stealing, you know, from Azamo Bay. So then you start a following portion of the quest where you're following them, and they just spend a while talking about the Mongols, and they mention that the Mongols killed their friend Tamon by impaling him on an anthill. So again, I mean, it's a small detail in the scope of the game, but yeah, I mean, just imagine what that would be like, you know, to have a friend, someone you've known for years, you know, not only just be gone in the blink of an eye, but to have been put through such an agonizing and horrific death. And again, it just tells you a lot about the Mongol invasion. And the developers of this game do a great job of just, even in small moments, surrounding you with the heaviness of just how awful this must have been in real life as a historical event. So then you confront them eventually, and they say they're happy to see you because they're hiding the most important objects from their shrine in Azamo Bay. And the conversation then gets interrupted by a new person called Ukon, calling out for two of the bandits who are with you at the cemetery, Sotaro and Kihei. And the bandits, so the bandits are not bandits. They're just villagers, basically. And so they start running back to the house that you were at, saying that the Mongols found the house and they all have to run back to fight them. So the rain suddenly stops and it's like sunset. So I noticed that. But so you get back to the house, you clear the Mongols, and then there's a group of travelers who are hiding inside that were fleeing the Mongols in the house. And they say they want to help, basically. So you lead the whole group back to Azamo Bay, and you then encounter the villager who gave you the quest, and he doesn't want to let them in. And he says, no, they're bandits. And Jin kind of sets him straight and says, no, they're not bandits. These people are travelers. Your neighbor is trying to save artifacts of value. They're with me. And then the villagers thank Jin, and Jin tells the bandits that you met, their names Sotaro and Kihei, he tells them to protect the people in Azamo Bay, and that's what they can do to help. So yeah, that's the end of the quest. Pretty good quest all in all. You know, again, it just adds something new to the game and gives you a different perspective about just how people would respond to war, you know, and warfare being brought to their home. So at this point, we're then done with Azamo. So now we're going to get back to the regular order that we're going to do the rest of this in. So we're going to do the Hiyoshi Prefecture. And this is where Castle Kaneda is in the northern part of Izuhara. So there's only 2 quests in Hiyoshi, 2 side quests. The first one is called Incident at Hiyoshi Pass. And I found this one because I just came across it. So you can find a peasant who says that Mongols have taken the bridge, or you can come upon it like I did, and you just hear the battle noise and yelling. So you can see a person huddled on a bridge being shot at by the villager or by the Mongols. So you talk to a villager who's standing at the edge of the bridge, and he says, "Oh, that's my nephew." And his name is Banta. And he says that Banta is injured and stranded on the bridge, and that the Mongols are shooting him from a ravine. So the Mongols are down in a ravine, and the bridge runs above the ravine. So the Mongols are shooting upwards. And then Jin says, oh, they're using Banta as bait, hoping that more people come in to try and get him so they can shoot them too. So then, yeah, again, there's not too much to say on this quest. You just go through the ravine clearing the Mongols, and it's actually a pretty cool quest because you're kind of hopping down a cliff from stone to stone, and you can be stealth assassinating people, from the air. As you go down, eventually you get spotted, and then you can use your bow. And again, it's pretty cool. It's like you're just picking people off with your bow on the cliffside. So, cool quest all in all. And then eventually you get back to the top. You clear the Mongols, and you go and save Banta. You get him off the bridge, and the uncle says, "Did you make the Mongols scream?" And Jin kind of has a moment where he says, like, we don't want suffering, so let's try and be careful with that language. But Jin then says, "Why don't you guys go to Hiyoshi Springs? And that's a safe place for you to be." And that's the end of the quest. So yeah, and one thing I wanted to mention is from doing this quest, you obtain the charm of Unyielding 1, and it moderately reduces damage taken while at 50% or less health. Plus you get 10 linen from it. So that's a pretty good charm. So I actually just wanted to mention that. So then the next quest is called the next and final quest in the Hiyoshi Prefecture is called the Laughing Bandits. So this becomes available after you unlock Act 2. And it's located at the Kechi Fishing Village. So you may remember this. This is a village located along a beautiful river. And this is where you first met Yuna for the first quest of the game. After you escape Komata Town, you meet Yuna for the quest here. And the quest that you met her for was called the Warrior's Code, but it was nighttime. And you kind of just like go through the Kechi Fishing Village pretty quickly, so you don't really see much. So now you're back here during the day, and you talk to a crying woman at a dock on the river, and so it's broad daylight. She says that bandits are terrorizing the Komata area, and so you're really Kechi Village is like right on the border between Komata and Hiyoshi, so that's why she says that. And she said that the bandits killed her family at their home, and Jin says he'll help. Her name is Saki. So then you have to travel actually pretty far north. You for sure travel into Komata. And then you find Saki's home. So then you do another investigating quest, and you find that some dead bodies are there. They were definitely killed in cold blood. And you find a map that's marking that location. And there's a scroll, and it says, then we can finally be together. So at this point, Jin, feels like this place was targeted for some reason. It's not just like a random act. So outside, you find a dead sheepdog, very sad. And Jin says, "Oh, the dog died protecting its family." Very sad. You never want to see a sad animal. And you find lots of footprints heading to the main road. So you follow them, and eventually you come upon a person named Kokichi, and he's injured next to a dead horse with arrows being shot at him all around. And so he says he heard that the old Kechi farm was freed and wanted to bring them horses and medicine, but bandits found him first. So he says he was headed toward Komata Beach, and that the bandits were laughing. So that's kind of the sticking point of this quest, is that the bandits are laughing about something. So you get there, and the bandit says to you, like just out of nowhere, like you're fighting the bandit, and then the bandit says to you, "Imagine you killed your whole family to be with the man you love. A few days later, he gets rid of you. Probably kill myself." And then you just kill this bandit in a duel. So that's it. So then there's more bandits in Komata Village. You just clear them all, and then you go back and you find the woman who asks, or you find a woman who asks you to let her go. And this is at Komata Village, and she says that the bandits were laughing at a poor girl who was in love with Haruro. And he was in charge and told him where her family hid the rice. So and then Jin says, "Let me guess, is this woman's name Saki? The person who is in love with Haruro and told him where her family hid the rice?" And the woman says yes. So Haruro, you then find out Haruro killed Saki's family, took all their family rice that was hidden, and in the game they say left her in a ditch. And so apparently Saki is heartbroken. Her family's dead. Haruro just ruthlessly used her, which is just awful. And so then Jin feels used, and he said like, oh, well, she just wants revenge on them because she told him where her family's rice is, and now she wants to use me to just like be the instrument of her revenge. So you go back to the Kechi fishing village, and the person you find, Kokichi, is there, and he says that Saki drowned herself in the river. And they say it's the strangest thing. She blamed herself for the death of her family. And then Jin says that she was manipulated by the bandits and that the bandits are dead and they're no longer a problem. And that is the end of the quest. So definitely, yeah, not a heartwarming one, not an empowering one, that's for sure. But that wraps up all the side quests in the Hiyoshi Prefecture. So we're now more than halfway done here, so we'll just keep it moving right along. So next we have quests in the Ariake Prefecture, and the first quest we're going to cover is called the Cost of Iron. So this is located northwest of the Kuta grasslands during the day, and so you start by investigating the home of peasants, and there's a peasant there who says a merchant is helping the Mongols and that they gave him an iron mark, which allows that merchant to travel the roads freely. So the peasant says that he and a group tried to take it upon themselves to take the iron mark from the merchant so that they could have it and basically be safe from the Mongols by showing it to them and saying like, oh, look, like, we're allowed to pass. And they got injured and did not succeed. So they say that the merchant's cart that they ambushed is still up the road. So you run to it as Jin, and you find a bunch of dead Mongols around there. And then you find abandoned supplies, a campfire, but there's no sign of the merchant and there's no iron mark. So right here, the Mongols then ambush you actually. With arrows, and obviously you get lucky that you don't get hit by an arrow and you cleared the Mongols. So then you worry that they're searching for the peasants that you just met back at the house, the guy you talked to, and there's another person there. So you go back, and then you find the peasant with an arrow sticking out of him, and he's almost dead after the Mongols had attacked that house. And he's saying you have to save the merchant because the merchant that he was talking about, that is actually his brother. And he says that he's a good person. And he was trying to steal the mark to stop his brother from dishonoring their family. And right then he dies after you finish the conversation. So yeah, you then investigate and find tracks headed through the woods on a path. You just, similar to other investigating quests, you just follow the tracks for a while. And then you end up at a house in the woods with Mongols patrolling outside. So you then clear the Mongols. This is a good quest to use stealth. And the merchant is inside. So the brother of the guy is inside, and then you free him. So he says that the Mongols told him that they would have protected his family if he carried supplies for them. But then he says that his brother is dead, and you tell him that his brother's dead because he led an attack against the Mongols at the trade cart. And the merchant says, oh, that's why the Mongols thought I betrayed them. Like he thought that they thought I gave them up and told them where they could be ambushed. And then he tells you that there is no iron mark. And if there was an iron mark, it would bear a specific name, so no one else could use it anyway. And then he says, that he has nothing left to live for, because the remaining family that's alive would be ashamed of him, and he doesn't know where to go or what to do. And not to be a total bummer here for all of you, but that's the end of the quest. I wish there was more. I wish it ended a different way and there was more I could say about it, but that's all we got there. And then there's only one final quest for the Ariake Prefecture, side quest that is, and the quest is called A Place to Call Home. So the quest is located northeast from the River Farm Bridge across the river, and the quest takes place at nighttime. A man who's running will come and flag you down, and he says that the Mongols took his house and they have his wife and son. So he ran to find help. So you run to the house and you clear the Mongols. It's not far, and you clear the Mongols at the house. So then you find no sign of the family inside the house, and the house is all beaten up. It's like it's clearly been, ransacked. And you find damp laundry outside at the river, and, Jin says, oh, the attack was sudden. And then you follow a blood trail over to the river where Jin then says, oh, bodies were dragged this way and thrown in the water. So then as you get to the edge of the water, you find a child's toy, and you head back to the house. It's like right there, where the man has come to the house, and he says, and you inform him that his family is dead, and you don't see any bodies. And I think having the child's toy be there instead of a child's body was the right thing to do, because that's just a terribly sad truth of things that happen in war. And you tell him that he's dead, and it's a super sad and solemn conversation with him. And then the guy actually says to you, well, why didn't you save them? And this was a moment where I was like, dude, like, you ran away. And I got here as fast as I could. I don't know what else to say. And so then he says that he ran like a coward, and that he should be dead too. And Jin sits on this moonlit dock on the river that they're at this house, and tells him to resist the invaders, and that's the best way to avenge his family. And so I just want to point out, this was a beautiful scene. Like the moonlit river and dock and clear moonlit skies was just gorgeous. So yeah, that's the end of the quest at this point. Again, not a super uplifting one. But you receive the charm of well-being 1 from this quest, and that gives you an additional 7.5 health when healing. So that's pretty good. That's a good charm to have for sure.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
Make your next vacation unforgettable. On Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Star of the Seas. It's everything you've loved about every family vacation you've ever been on, with mind-blowing thrills at the largest water park at sea, 7 onboard pools for every level of chill, more than 40 ways to dine and drink, and even more to enjoy at our award-winning private island, Perfect Day at Coco Cay. This is the new Star of the Seas. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
So that wraps up our Ariake side quests, and the next prefecture is Kashine. So this is to the south of Komeda on the western side of the island in the middle section. So the first quest is called Whisper in the Woods, and you can get this quest from a survivor camp, and a woman says that the woods are haunted by spirits, and the Japanese and Mongols are turning up dead over there, and she says not to go. So Jin seems skeptical, and I just want to say, from the start, I thought this was a super freaky and cool sounding quest. Just like a haunted woods sort of quest, really awesome. So eventually you arrive at the Yagata Woods in Kashina, and I just want to say there's not much that really happens in Kashina or Komeda really for the story. There's like, a couple quests here and there. I think there's one story quest in Kashina, and other than the intro being in Komeda, like these two prefectures and the northwestern section of the island they can be easy to miss. So you arrive at the Yagata Woods, and you talk to a peasant who's playing a flute at a campfire in front of some rocks, like outside of the woods. And he says to wait until nightfall because that's when death stalks the forest. So you have a conversation with him about it. Jin's skeptical. Jin says, all right, I'm going in there. So, you wait till nighttime, and then it's a super freaky and cool setting. Like at least as far as Ghost of Tsushima goes, this is about as like thriller horror as Ghost of Tsushima would get. So it's nighttime, and there's super fog. There's fog everywhere in this forest, and there's moonlit fog coming through, and it's windy with a lot of fireflies around. So just really atmospheric. So you find a house where someone lived in the woods, and you examine some dead bodies, and Jin says that someone was imitating samurai vengeance. So you find another dead body ahead, and it's decapitated. And Jin says he was trying to get away from someone. Find another dead person killed by a fine blade, but then Jin says, "Oh, but this was with unskilled hands." So I have to say, like, I was going into this quest, I was kind of hoping to be a little bit scared at just like, how cool it was, the atmosphere. So then you read a record that you find, and it says that the caretaker of the house or of the nearby area heard strange voices at night, and that according to some old poems and scrolls in the area, he went missing. And so you find this in the house. So then you find a recently dead villager with tracks leading somewhere. So Jin starts to follow them, and it leads you to a bandit camp. And so, you clear the bandits, and then the last one says, "The samurai spirit is real. Buddha, protect me." And he starts to run. You can actually decide the fate of this guy. You can let him run or not. Unfortunately, that's kind of the end of the quest. I kind of hoped it would be like a little more horror-y and just really cool, but it did have a cool atmosphere. So then you tell the peasant at the start of the quest that he can tell a new tale of murderous bandits who took over the forest, and the last warrior from Clan Sakai heard angry cries of samurai spirits and rid the bandits of the forest as if he was summoned to do it. And that's the end of the quest. And that's the only quest for Kushina Prefecture. So then we move on to Komatsu Prefecture, and this is the second to last one before we're all done. And so the only quest in Komatsu is the other side of honor. And this quest, these are all on the western side of the island. So this is to the south of Kushina and Komeda, but still on the west. So that's where Komatsu is. So the other side of honor, you can meet a peasant at a camp who says that Lord Jinroku was the only samurai left alive, and Jin has no idea what he means. So this is at one of the survivor camps, and so he says, "Oh, he's at a house in Kushina." And so the wiki has a quest in Komatsu, but they say that the house is in Kushina according to the wiki. So I thought that was interesting. But so Jin says he's curious to meet him, and so this is north of Shigenori's peak. So you get there, and it's a nice house with people living there, and there's farming, and it seems pretty good. So I don't know, you're exploring it. So there's a lot of women farming and people around. It seems very safe. So you go inside, and one of them asks you to join them for dinner. And she says, "Oh, Lord Jinroku is a legendary samurai, and he'll be back soon to share his grand stories." So immediately right away, you're like, something seems weird about this, but whatever. So then eventually this Lord Jinroku, he gets back, and he's really playing it up. What a dangerous mission he was on. So he's wearing this very legitimate red samurai armor. So they sit down, and Jinroku, they're talking about just being samurai, and Jinroku says, yes, the beaches of Komatsu ran red with blood that day. And then Jin says, we fought at Komeda Beach, not Komatsu Beach. And then Jinroku says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it was a long ride. I'm tired, of course." So then Nabu, Nabu is the woman who asked you to sit for dinner. Nabu shows you to a warm bath outside. And they say, "Oh, well, we'll talk more over dinner. For now, let's get you to a bath so you can rest." So Nabu says, "Oh, Lord Jinroku saved the whole island of Tsushima, and that he gave everything for it except his horse." So then you go and look at it. You check it out at the stables, and you say, "I don't want my bath right now. I'm going to go look around." And so you check out the horse, you do some investigating, and it's not a samurai horse, it's a farm horse. So then you find a saddle that Jin actually recognizes, and Jin says, "Oh, this saddle belonged to Lord Higuchi." And that says to me that this guy is not a real samurai. And somehow he got Lord Higuchi's saddle and maybe his armor too. So obviously the quest is now taking a bit of a dark turn. So you go back inside to get the truth, and you find out that Jinroku ran away in a hurry. And so one of the peasants says, "Oh, he left in a hurry, after you went out for your bath." So you follow his tracks uphill. It's not super far. And then you chase him to the top of this beautiful hill at nighttime. It's really gorgeous, and it has an overlook that's very nice. And, he says, stop chasing me, and I wasn't hurting anyone, just leave me alone. And then he says, I'll fight you. So then you get to the top of this quest, and then an actual, like, intro quest pops up as if this is like a real quest and a real duel, and it has the real Japanese script and everything, the way that, like, the main story quests do. And then it says, duel at Kashine Onsen. And I was like, so when I'm playing this, I was like, oh, so this is legit. Like, this is going to be a real fight. And I like sat forward and was like, oh, all right, let's go. So then this guy Lord Jinroku, he gets a real health bar. This looks like it's going to be a real fight. And then as the battle is about to start, Jinroku just surrenders immediately. And he says, oh, I was just trying to survive. And Jin says, you're being dishonorable. You're impersonating a samurai. So then Jin says, like, I'll let you go, but don't ever let me see you wearing that armor again. And he says, okay. And he runs away. So, yeah, then you go back, you tell the women the truth. And Nabu, the woman, she says that she already knew that he was a fake samurai, and she says that they liked having him around because he was harmless and he could scare people away. So Nabu says that she'll tell everyone he left on an important mission and they were fine before he was there, and that they'll be fine afterwards. Yeah, I have to say, just letting him run away in the armor, I was a little bit like, I mean, isn't that a little disrespectful to Lord Higuchi? But whatever, he's gone, so that's the end of it. And from this, I just want to say, you get a charm that's really good. It's called the Charm of Shadows, and it reduces enemy detection speed by 10% of you. So that's a really good charm to get from this. So yeah, at this point, you're then all done with Komatsu Prefecture, and we only have one final prefecture left for side quests, and that's the Sutsu Prefecture. That's the westernmost one that's very beachy. So the first quest is called Lost at Sea. And so it's located on a place called Kijo Isle, south of Aoi Village. And so people are talking of a man at sea practicing with a sword, saying he'll hurt someone. So you hear about this as like another rumor from a survivor camp. So you then have to swim to get to this island. It's a small island off the coast. You actually have to swim to get there. It's not attached to the mainland. So then you arrive at this beautiful little island, and there's a man around a campfire, and he's got a rowboat, and he's just practicing with the sword. He's alone. He's just like swinging his sword around and practicing. So he says that his name is Atsuki, and he says that the Mongols have taken his daughter on ships, and you can see the ships from the island, like they're right there. So Jin says that there's 2 vessels, and Atsuki asks for help rescuing his daughter. So then there's this beautiful sunset, by the way, that's, the sun is setting right there as you go out to the ships. And yeah, it then cuts to black and you're just at the ships. That's how it is in this game. There's never like rowing any boats. Like it just cuts away and, you just arrive at the ships when you get there. So then you hop on board and clear the Mongols. I just want to shout out how cool the horse heads are on the ships. They have these massive horse heads the times you get on the ships, and it's just really cool level design. So yeah, I thought all the ships level designs are really cool. So eventually you find the daughter. Her name is Maki. You clear the Mongols, and then you bring her back to the boat, the rowboat, and she's shocked that you killed all the Mongols. Like she's literally like, oh my God, how did you do that? That's crazy. But she's very relieved. And then, you get back to shore with Maki and, Atsuki, and they're both very grateful. And that's the end of the quest. So that's it. Yeah, short and sweet. So the next quest is called Empty Baskets, and this is located on a house just south of Lake Kunihama, and you can talk to a woman at the door of her house or hear about the quest from the survivor camp. So the woman is named Hatsu, and she says that bandits took her food. So she's a widow living alone, and she says that the bandits took her food into the woods, and she asked Jin not to harm them because they're desperate too, and that they need to eat too. So this is a windy nighttime quest. You ride into the woods and discover the bandits. Again, this is pretty short. And they're talking about robbing old women and other people. Again, like it's almost a little hokey and funny in the way that they're doing it. They're saying like, oh, I heard there's an old woman who lives up the road that way. Maybe we should go there. And they're like really driving home the point of like, wow, these bandits are really bad people, just robbing old people specifically. So then you honestly, you just kill the bandits, you clear the camp, and you recover the rice, you return it to the woman. And she says that she's grateful, but that she doesn't remember the last time she had rice. So then Jin discovers that this rice wasn't hers. And he says you didn't have to lie about the rice not being yours because he would have still helped you. And she says, oh, I'm so sorry, I won't do it again. And that's the end of the quest. I gotta say that I was a little confused by this, because I don't understand how if she knew how she knew about the Mongols, that they had this rice out in the woods if it wasn't hers to begin with. But I don't know. It's a side quest, so it is what it is. Empty baskets, that's the quest. And that's it. That's the end of it. So then at this point, there's only one last quest for all the side quests in Act 1 on Izuhara. And it's the last quest for Sutsu. It's called A Healer's Touch. So this quest starts north of the seaside hot spring, and it's west of River Child's wetlands. So this is a nighttime quest, and you follow a monk named Hanauka. And so he's a monk at a camp in the woods, and he says that people at a camp in the woods are seriously ill, and he's been hearing about it. So he says they need a healer, so he needs to go. So he says that sickness needs someone to care for it and not fight it. And he's really teaching Jin a lesson here. This is another just kind of a funny video game moment. But Jin agrees to get him there safely to this camp in the woods. So Hanauka asks how he survived Komada Beach on the ride there. And they talk about Yuna and healing and how important healing is. And so then the monk says that his mother taught him how to heal, and it's kind of a family pastime. So you then encounter bandits on the road trying to get food from villagers. There's a dead horse. You clear the bandits, and you tell the villagers that they shouldn't be out because it's dangerous. And so the peasants say they left the farmstead because everyone is sick, and their home is cursed by spirits after the Mongols left with the food. So Hanauka, so then this is a little ominous. So you continue on your way to the camp in the woods or the farmstead. So Hanauka then says on the ride, "You're quite the butcher with that sword." I have to say, I actually thought this was a pretty funny dialogue line, just the way it was delivered. And then they kind of argue, Jin and Hanauka kind of argue on this quest about, the merits of using diplomacy instead of violence. And, the monk ends up apologizing, and Jin says, I only do this because they're ruthless invaders who are in our homeland terrorizing people. I don't want to do this. And, and then eventually they talk about this, and Jin makes a joke to him saying oh, well, maybe you can ask those bandits nicely, if to not kill the villagers. And so again, they have a back and forth about diplomacy versus violence and everything. So you then arrive at this farmstead, and there's a woman asking for help to heal her sick son. And she says that he ate something poisonous. So I just have to say, this is just funny. I can't believe they put this in the game. I love this game. I'm not knocking it. I just think it's funny. And I just think it's funny that it's there. So you then have to look around and investigate what he could have eaten that was poisonous. And so you look around, and you then find outside some half-eaten mushrooms on a log. Yeah, so bad mushrooms. So then you go back inside, tell them what happens, and Hanauka says, oh, I can make an antidote, but I need river moss. So Jin sets out to find river moss. So you just run 150 feet or meters or whatever to a nearby river, and you get the river moss and bring it back. So then Hanauka tells the woman how to crush the river moss and boil it into river moss water, and that have her son drink it, and that he'll be okay by tomorrow. So that wraps up that part of the quest. So then you leave, and the monk says that the symptoms were the same as the symptoms at the camp, and that he's been hearing about. So then he says, and it's the same at the farmstead. So then he says that he believes that the food or water is poisoned at the farmstead, and that he says he can cure it with tubers because they're stronger than river moss. So you encounter Mongols at a pond where you're going to retrieve the tubers from the pond. And yeah, they kind of have a funny banter where Jin says, "Hey, why don't you ask the Mongols politely to move and let us through?" So then yeah, the monk says, "Yeah, I'm gonna let you handle this." So you clear the Mongols. You can shoot a hornet's nest off a tree, which is kind of funny to help you in the fight. You collect the tubers from the pond. You ride with the monk to the farmstead in the woods. And then you talk to Hanauka, and Hanauka asks if Jin, he says, like, do you enjoy the violence? And Jin says, no, like, I only do this to protect people. So, just thought notable dialogue there. So then you arrive at the farmstead camp in the woods, and a person right away says, oh, my wife stopped breathing. And Hanauka, takes a look at her and says she's dead already. So the final cutscene for the whole quest is Jin and Hanauka talking, and they figure out that the well was poisoned by the Mongols. And Hanauka says that the tubers will treat it. And that is the end of the quest. And that's our last quest for the Sutsu Prefecture and our last side quest for Act 1. So yeah, all in all, I liked all the side quests. I mean, they each did something different. They bring you to different places on the map. I think, you kind of end up doing similar types of quests, investigating, following, fighting, some talking. But, I always feel like it's different enough that it's still fun. And it gets you different places, gets you different charms. So all in all, yeah, I've really enjoyed these side quests. I hope you guys have too. And if, any of you, the listeners, if you're listening, feel free to reach out to us on Blue Sky or send us an email or any thoughts you have. Seriously, join the Robots Radio Discord. If you join the Robots Radio Discord and join the Ghost of Tsushima Yotei Discord channel, I'll be there. We can talk. We can hang. So, hey, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, I had fun recording it. We will be releasing another episode shortly. It'll be our final Act 1 episode, and then we'll be moving on to Act 2. Very exciting. Can't believe this is episode 5 of the main story, but the 7th episode overall that we've recorded. Really exciting, really fun stuff. Hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I am. So hope everyone takes care, and listen, everyone, try not to eat poisonous mushrooms, even if you're really, really hungry.